After almost 100 days, 99 to be exact, I can finally say that it is a glorious day for Major League Baseball after months, literally, of just despair and sadness and frustration. However, we have some very, 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 very good news today. And that is that baseball is back, as you can see by my document name here. There was so much information today that I just threw it into a document. I compiled everything that I could find that had to do with either the CBA or just rule changes, general things to know about the lockout ending. And you can see here that there is quite a lot of stuff. But I'm starting at the top here. I also have all of my sources. They're all on Twitter, mostly, except one article by Jeff Passan, who, if y'all didn't see, got hacked on Twitter today. That's a whole other thing. He got hacked by some NFT dudes, and it took him a few hours to get his account back. He actually, ironically, did get it back right in time for the massive announcement of MLB being back. But anyway, I'm going to get straight into it because there's a lot to talk about. So, first thing, free agency likely starts tonight. The owners are going to vote to ratify this new CBA, which that I didn't put on there, but that's happening literally in like 20 minutes. By the time this video is up, it would have happened already. And it's just a formality. They only need 23 people to say yes. I'm sure one or two owners will say no, but 23 out of 30 is all they need. And players will start reporting to spring training as early as tomorrow, but they have to be there by Sunday, which leads me to a point down here that the Rangers will be having a minor league game to open their spring training schedule tomorrow, 1 o'clock Mountain Time. And it's free for fans. Probably will see Jack Leiter there. So if you're in Surprise, definitely go to that game. I mean, absolutely free. So that's one thing. Games will start around the 18th to the 20th. There's no solid schedule yet. Opening day, April 7th, is the huge one there. And all 162 games will be played. Some doubleheaders with a few extra games, or days rather, at the end of the season. This is when it gets interesting now, as the final vote on the CBA was 26 to 12. You only needed 20 out of the 38 to pass it. That's the majority. And all 8 player executive committee members voted no. 5 of the 8 are represented by Scott Boras. And I think, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I do think Marcus Semien is on that committee. I don't know, though, so don't hold me to that. But I thought he was one of the higher-end guys on the MLBPA. I get why they were still voting no, but I do think that the teams wanted to play. The team vote was 26 to 4, so it was pretty much all team votes are what got it to pass. And the 4 teams that did vote no were the Mets, Yankees, Astros, and Cardinals. Those jokes all write themselves. I don't need to even say anything about that. But how it works, to my knowledge, is that there was one representative for each team that got to vote on the team side, and then there were the 8 player executive committee members who also got to vote. But yeah, the Scott Boras representation, that could also be a whole other video. A couple more interesting things here too. These are the highlights. Is there will be no Rule 5 draft in 2022. I know they kind of want to phase that out entirely, which I'm not opposed to. I think it is a little silly that you can just lose a player for no reason, basically. And lastly, the Rangers have a current projected payroll of $128.6 million rather. And the reason this has increased is because of the points in the CBA. The minimum salary this year is $700K, and it will go up each year eventually to $780. The pre-arbitration bonus pool is now at $50 million, and this was a huge thing for the players. They were fighting for this. It's still not what they wanted it to be, but that's part of the compromise, part of the negotiations. And that's at $50 million now. Basically, all that means is for players who are not yet in arbitration, there will be this big bonus pool of money, so they get paid more. as well as the luxury tax threshold is now at $230 million and will get up to $244 million, going up each year, which is interesting. I've never been too knowledgeable about all that. However, it is good, in my opinion, to have a cap on that, some kind of penalty for spending too much, I guess. I do think there should be a floor. There should be a minimum that a team does have to spend in order for them to, they got to spend a minimum amount in order for them to compete. But speaking of that, there will be a draft lottery at 6 picks. Not sure all the details on that, but that is another way they're going to try to discourage tanking. Universal DH, both leagues now, which is going to crack open free agency here any minute now. I mean, you'll see guys like Kyle Schwarber going back to the NL because he can be a DH now and things of that nature. Amateur draft down to 20 rounds now. I think it was 30 before, and then I think in the COVID year they dropped it to 20, so now it's going to be 20. And lastly, on that end, players can only be optioned 5 times per year now, which is good, in my opinion. It's one of the smaller things, but you'd always see these guys getting brought up and down, up and down, up and down. And in teams where their minor league teams are close, like the Rangers, you go to Round Rock, go to Frisco, it's not a super long trip. That's not as bad. It's still annoying, but I remember I've brought this up a few times before in conversations like this. But a few years ago, Joey Gallo, they called him up and they needed him for the game that night. So they gave him a police escort from Round Rock, and he drove from Round Rock in like 4 hours, something crazy like that. So anyway, that's a good one. It keeps teams on their toes about making these moves instead of just kind of carelessly making it. Moving on, here we got arbitration stuff where the hearings will be on, or rather the deadline is the 22nd, and the hearings will take place during the season. Guys like IKF, Willie Calhoun, Brett Martin, Taylor Hearn are the eligible ones from Texas this year, and that means they'll get these 1-year higher paid contracts instead of the minimum salary. Moving on even more, there's now a 45-day window for MLB to implement rule changes. It used to be a year. It would take a year for MLB to implement any rules. And among them are a pitch clock, ban on shifts, and larger bases in the 2023 season. That is going to happen as far as I know. Not this year, but 2023. Draft pick inducements to discourage service time manipulation. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm just assuming they'll take away draft picks in certain scenarios to discourage people from manipulating players' service time, and that I fully agree with, because a lot of teams will hold back star players just to get some more control of them before arbitration. So that is good. And a very small but interesting one is player uniforms will have advertising on them for the first time, with patches on jerseys and decals on batting helmets. I don't think that's that bad. If you've ever watched a minute of KBO or the Japanese League, this is commonplace there. So I don't think it's that bad. NBA recently started doing that. So, I mean, it's just easy money, As long as it doesn't affect too much how the jerseys look and how the helmets look. Like, if they put like a Honda logo next to the Rangers logo, like on the same side or something, but they're slapping it on the side of the helmet probably, so I don't think that's a huge deal, and it won't be overbearing more than likely. So I know people are probably freaking out about that, but that's very, very small in the grand scheme of this. And a couple more rule changes. I mentioned the universal DH already, but there's not going to be a runner on second base in extra innings anymore, which means the Rangers might win a few more games this year in that regard. It did not go well for them last year. It was pretty much the home team was almost guaranteed to win these games. So it was a little bit of a broken rule in my opinion. And then doubleheaders are going back to 9-inning games. They were 7 for the last 2 seasons. Don't know what the change there was. I mean, you're saving, was it 4 innings across both games? So, don't really care either way. That's fine to keep it how it was. And the big one from this is a 12-team expanded postseason. There's not much info about that out yet, but what I did get to see was Jason Stark, who is a senior reporter for The Athletic, did have this to say: no more Game 163 tiebreakers. All playoff spots will be determined through NFL-type tiebreaker formulas. And I'm not very familiar with that, but I assume that's like, if the Rangers beat the A's 10 times that season or something, like they have the tiebreaker. So I just assume it's something like that. But we'll get into the specifics of that once that is known. And no reseeding for the League Division Series. 1 seed plays the winner of 4 versus 5 wildcard series. 2nd seed plays the 3 versus 6 winner. Yes, they're bringing back the wildcard series. It's whatever, they want more games, more money, etc., etc. And these were some direct quotes from Jason. Those tiebreaker games have to bite the dust to make sure the wildcard series can start 2 days after the end of the regular season. That's especially true in the postseason, which has to fit into a tighter window, so World Series dates don't have to be moved because, man, do they not want to have to move some World Series dates. I mean, people pay thousands for these tickets. A lot of people probably bought their tickets this year after the last one ended, so, it's pretty tight there. And like I mentioned already, just looking ahead, there is going to be a game tomorrow. And you might see Jack Leiter for free, So I believe that's it, though. There have been some updates as I've been making this video. But, I mean, before I started recording it, obviously. So I think for the moment, I have caught up with everything big. If you want to get into all the specifics, I'd recommend checking out Twitter. Go to ESPN's website. It is all over the internet right now because MLB just avoided a catastrophic thing. And this, in my opinion, is the big one right here. All 162 getting played. Because it wasn't even the concept that they were missing games. It was the reasoning behind it, the why, in my opinion. So, thankfully, that did happen. But I will say this. Let's not forget that this did happen. Because owners will be quick to, they're going to just get straight into the marketing again and be like, oh, no, this never happened. Because at the end of the day, this was an owner-induced lockout. So that's all I have to say about that. I might get another podcast episode out here soon now that we have things to talk about. I assume you'll be hearing from me again today when the Rangers sign Clayton Kershaw. I'm putting in the call right now because free agency is about to explode any minute now. By the time y'all see this, certainly. So let me know in the comments how you feel about this, who you want the Rangers to sign, because by the time you comment, they might sign them or trade or whatever it may be. And my wish list is definitely Clayton Kershaw, Seiya Suzuki, and if they can pull it off, Matt Olson, because why not? So appreciate y'all watching, sticking with me through this lockout. It has been a long 99 days. But we have made it to the light at the end of the tunnel. Opening day, April 7th. I won't be there, but I hope you will be. And we'll be talking about baseball.